So thank you for making this beverage. Let's tell everyone the secret to this. It's the most delicious thing I've ever had.
Well, it's wonderful, and like I was telling you, I used to just do like just black coffee or just regular tea or just like like these 4 sigmatic mushroom extract blends, but I just put hot water on them. And I've always kind of been resistant to the dropping the whole stick of butter in your coffee thing. I just I don't like to drink my calories. I'm a foodie. I like to eat them. Totally. But at the same time, what I realized recently, this is like a thing for me in the past month, is anytime you drop fat into something, it makes it more bioavailable, and the lipids cross your blood-brain barrier better. Blah blah blah. Like we know all that, but it makes this foamy texture. It foams, and I can't figure out a way to make something foam without adding either butter or coconut oil or something to it. So now what I do is I make my coffee or my tea. It's a little bit annoying because it takes an extra 2 minutes every time I want to drink something. And then I blend it for like a good 60 seconds to 2 minutes. And the reason that I blend it for so long is I figured this out. When I make my morning smoothie, which is just like it's ice, it's bone broth, it's a little bit of vitamin C to make the collagen from the bone broth more bioavailable.
What kind of vitamin C do you put in there?
Oh, just like the squeeze of half a lemon, right? Like, you don't need that much, But it and bone broth, I'll put about 10 grams worth of collagen from the bone broth in there. So put all the bone broth in, and then I'll just put superfoods or protein powders, whatever kind of happens to be around. It's not the same mix every day. Yeah. But what I've found is that as opposed to, and a lot of people do this, they'll make up like a morning smoothie and blend it, and they'll blend it for like 15 seconds or 30 seconds. But I blend it for like 4 minutes. Right? Like I push blend and I walk away, and it adds a bunch of kind of like air into the mix. So with a smoothie, you don't get foam, but the best way I can describe it is it's like a Wendy's Frosty kind of texture. And I eat it with a spoon. I have a friend who does the same thing, and he puts sunflower lecithin in his. And sunflower lecithin is an emulsifying agent, and that makes it more foamy, right? Okay. It's more like a sponge cake when you do it that way. Oh, wow. So what I've discovered is that with the teas and the coffees, you blend them for about 60 seconds, like we just did in your kitchen, and you get this nice foamy mix. It's not overly filling because there's only like a teaspoon of coconut oil in there, but it's enough to kind of give it that foamy kick, help deliver some of the nutrients into the brain a little bit easier. And so we did a packet each of the mushroom coffee with chaga, and then an extra packet of lion's mane, which is a great nootropic. Yep. And then we put in 2 dropperfuls of stevia, and we used one of my favorite brands that I'm in no way financially affiliated with. I just like them. It's Omika Organics stevia. We use vanilla. And then we put the equivalent of a level teaspoon of coconut oil in for each of us, so 2 teaspoons of coconut oil. And do we do a dropperful or 2 dropperful of the Stanley Brothers? 2 dropperfuls of the Stanley Brothers mint chocolate CBD, which gives you kind of like a nice, it almost like takes the edge off of caffeine and stabilizes something like that nootropic high that the caffeine and the lion's mane can give you. And I think that was it. Was that it?
I think that was it.
It's not too much. I mean, if I was at home, the one thing I would have added in there would have been some really nice drinking cacao, like a really good high quality, like 100% cacao powder, just to give it like kind of like that Mexican drinking chocolate kind of stuff. There you go. Yeah. There you go, baby.
What else? And you always go with coconut oil, or do you put MCTs in or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm pretty agnostic on the oil. Sometimes I'll open the refrigerator and there'll be like a nice pad of like dark orange butter there, you know, like the real grass-fed butter, because my wife's been, out at a farm or out shopping at the local organic grocery store and brought back the quote good stuff. Sometimes some coconut oil. Sometimes there's a lot of companies now doing these like emulsified MCT oils that like on it that has like a pumpkin and a vanilla. Sometimes I'll use that. What else? Sometimes coconut manna, which is a blend of coconut flesh and coconut oil, which is really good. Yeah. And then sometimes these little cacao butter, like these hard cacao butter is kind of cool. You can buy this in a bag full. It's kind of hard. It's got a cacao-ish taste. Yeah. So yeah, totally agnostic, and sometimes it just tastes like ass, right? Like sometimes I mess up, and it's like I'm not gonna. Usually, if I go anything that kind of delves down into the fruity route, like if I put something like raspberry-ish or like berry-ish or fruity, I'm not a fruity guy, and that stuff doesn't taste good.
What else do you put in the morning smoothie?
So usually some kind of a wild plant, so that you get the hormetic effect of that little antioxidant. Screw you, Stephen Gundry. I'm putting wild plants and I'm attacking my gut purposefully. Wild nettle, mint, parsley, cilantro. I live up in Washington State where a lot of this stuff is growing wild out in the land. The dandelion leaf is another one that grows around us. Oregon grape root, which you can like shave off a little bit of the yellowish orange part of the root, and it's almost like berberine. It's very healthy for the gut. Has a little bit of a blood sugar lowering effect. So some kind of like wild plant. And if it's winter right now, everything's covered in ice and snow. So in that case, there's a lot of these companies that make greens powders, Athletic Greens or Organifi, or I'm kind of agnostic, but I'll just grab like a tub of greens and I'll put a scoopful of greens in there. Although if I have the option, I always go with something like wild and fresh and straight from the land, just because you get a little bit more of the energy out of it. Really, it just feels more alive when it's been touched by sun and it was just picked from the ground.
So in addition to the ones you mentioned, would you throw like spinach in there on top of that or something?
I wouldn't, because I'm kind of careful with spinach because I don't do so well, I've found, with a lot of oxalates in my diet. So I'm careful with spinach. I don't do a lot of spinach. I don't do a lot of kale. I feel better when I consume a low oxalate diet, with the exception being that if you must have your spinach and eat it too, there is a supplement called Nephure, Nephure, and that's an oxalate digesting enzyme that you can add into something like that if you want those oxalates to be digested, to be pre-digested. So anyways, I've got the wild plants, the bone broth, the lemon, a whole bunch of ice. Is
this bone broth powder or actual bone broth?
I just use the liquid bone broth. I'm not yet convinced the bone broth powder is not kind of like oxidized and heat dried. So I'm kind of careful with the bone broth powder. And then a little bit of that stevia. I usually put some cinnamon in there, typically like a Ceylon cinnamon, which is really good for like that postprandial blood glucose response. And what else? Oh, and then like a scoop or two, depending on how hard I'm planning on training that day, of protein, either. And again, I'm kind of agnostic on the protein. It could be like a good grass-fed whey, typically chocolate or vanilla. Lately, I've been using, again, the Organifi stuff. I like their flavor. I like Mount Capra up in Washington. They've got some good flavors. Onnit's got some good hemp stuff. So again, I mean,
so you do use some plant-based proteins.
Yeah, I like to go plant-based. Plant-based, especially if it has enzymes added into it, because this was a study a couple of years ago. It's kind of similar to how vitamin C enhances the absorption of the collagen in the bone broth. An enzyme, any digestive enzyme complex, or even digestive enzymes that have been added into a canister of a hemp or a pea or a rice protein, make the amino acid bioavailability of the plant protein the equivalent to that of whey protein. So it's a way to almost like hack your plant protein.
So what should people look for?
So you would just turn over the label and you would see if they've added enzymes to that, like papain, bromelain, trypsin, chymotrypsin, cellulase, like a lot of these enzymes that you would find. And if not, you can always just take digestive enzymes. Or, I mean, if you wanted to, you could even just take a handful of digestive enzymes and toss them in the blender. Right, with it, that'd be another way to do it. So anyways, I blend all of that. And like I mentioned, I blend that for about 4 minutes. So I walk away as it's blending, and I get that nice texture. I want it thick enough to be able to eat with a spoon. I don't like to drink it. I like to eat it like ice cream, ice cream. And so when that's all done, then I get I call them my crunchies. So anything that gives it texture. I like unsweetened coconut flakes. Right, like Bob's Red Mill or Thrive Market or any of these companies, like the big, thick, unsweetened coconut flakes. I like cacao nibs. That's another really good one. Good, like a good unsweetened dark cacao nib. Chlorella or spirulina. A lot of companies now are doing like little tablets or crunchies like spirulina or chlorella. And then I'm trying to think. There's one other thing. Oh, just like if there happens to be like any good nut around, like a good sprouted or soaked nut, I'll sometimes add that. Like I'll just kind of choose a couple of crunchies, throw them in there. My rough calculation is once I add all of this, it's about a 700 to 800 calorie smoothie, so it's a decent dose for breakfast. And just depends on how much you use, right? You can dose accordingly. And when I add those crunchies, I stir those all into the smoothie. So it's like, if you were to go to like an ice cream store and get like the topping on top of the smoothie, or a yogurt store and get the topping on top of the yogurt, similar to that, I put all that in just a big ass mug. And that's generally that's about when I'm starting my day, right? Like I've done my morning gratitude and meditation, and I've already kind of stretched out. I've taken my morning dump. I've done my sauna and finished up with a cold shower. Then I go inside, I make the smoothie, and usually I'm actually making it at the same time that I'm having a team call with my team, because I work from home. So we have like a huddle at about 9:45 a.m. every morning. So I'm kind of making my smoothie, every day, except the weekends. So I'm making my smoothie while I'm on the huddle with my team. I just mute myself, right, so they can't hear the blend and everything. And then I sit down, I'll just launch into emails and work and stuff while I sit there and I eat the smoothie. And I have this program on my computer called Dragon Dictation, and Dragon Dictation lets me talk. So a lot of times I'm eating my smoothie, but so that I don't have to type too much while I'm eating my smoothie, I talk my emails to people. Yeah. So that's the smoothee, dude. Yeah,
I love it. Go into your morning routine a little bit more.
Well, like you wake up, and of course you want to jump out of bed, and I force myself to stay in bed. And the way that I do that is I gratitude journal for about 5 minutes, and in bed, yes. And the reason I do it in bed is twofold. First of all, if I get out of bed, it's highly unlikely that by the time I get downstairs, I'm doing all my other things, I'm gonna stop to journal. And second, I like to track my heart rate variability in the morning, and most of the studies on heart rate variability were done on subjects lying down for about 3 to 5 minutes in a rested state. So that's a good time for me to pull on my little, Bluetooth-enabled heart rate strap, put that on, flip on my phone. I use an app called Nature Beat, and the monitor that I use, the Bluetooth monitor, is a very good one for transmitting a signal of heart rate variability. It's very sensitive to the beat-to-beat fluctuations in your heart. And so that monitor is called a Viva, I think it's 4 I's, VIIIIVA. And so I strap that on, and while I'm gratitude journaling, that's collecting information about my nervous system. And so I can look at that and I can see, for example, my sympathetic nervous system score is very low, and so today should not be a hard workout day unless I'm purposefully trying to overreach, trying to overreach so I can taper or compensate for an event. Or my parasympathetic nervous system is showing that I should engage in a high amount of aerobic activity today because that branch of my nervous system needs a little bit of a break, right? So I can kind of like plan my training accordingly based on what the HRV is doing. And I can also know, like, whatever, I had white wine instead of red wine last night, and that kind of fucked up my nervous system this morning. Or, some supplement that I took seems to have affected me deleteriously, or on the flip side, very positively. The other thing that I do while I'm laying there is I have this ring that I wear that tracks like my sleep data and my activity data. So I pull that up and I look at it. Just, I don't obsess over it, but I like to glance at the sleep data to see how'd my night of sleep look. And it's the same reason, right? Like if my deep sleep percentage is way down, I know that perhaps it could be the fact that I was reading my Kindle instead of a paper book that night. Could be that I had a really heavy meal too close to bedtime. But it's one of those things you can say, that's interesting. I'll note that and maybe next time make an adjustment and not eat so much prior to bedtime or do something else to enhance the deep sleep. And and then I finished my gratitude journaling, and I finished that heart rate measurement.
What do you do with your gratitude journal? Is there something? I
designed one. I know it sounds like shameless self-promotion, but I actually wrote a gratitude journal because I used a little notebook for a while, and then I called the guys who run the 5-minute journal, this popular journal. And I said, because I had an idea for a journal, but two of the guys that run that are my friends. I didn't want to launch some journal that competed with my buddies. So, but I was doing something different. I didn't want to write down like the me, I, what's my daily affirmation? What do I want to accomplish? It just seemed like a really selfish way to start off the day. So instead I answer 3 questions. The first is, what truth did I discover in today's reading? Because one of the things that I do when I wake up, as I'm kind of laying there doing that heart rate variability measurement, is I read a little devotional, like a little spiritual. And for example, the one that I'm reading right now is called Our Daily Bread. And it's like a daily Bible verse and an inspirational taught. It takes you 2 minutes to read, right? But it's a very positive way to start off the day. And when after you read that, you're going to write down one thing that you discovered, you read with a lot more intention, a lot more conscientiousness, right? And so that's a good way to read any book, by the way. Yeah. Like knowing that you're going to write something down. For me, what I do when I read books is I Snapchat as I go and kind of like send little messages out to people. It just kind of engages me in the book more. But same thing with this. So I read my morning devotional, write down the one truth that I discovered, whatever it might be, all the power that I need today comes from God, so something like that. Mm-hmm. And then next is one thing I'm grateful for, right? And it could be anything, like, a view of the forest through the window outside of my bedroom, or my wife lying there next to me, or, I get to talk to Jay today, or, whatever. Right. And then finally, the last question is, who can I pray for or help or serve today? Mm. So by writing that one person down, 365 days a year, you're going out of your way to do something for someone. And it might be very simple. I might write down my brother Zach's name and just like call him on the phone. Yeah. Be like, hey bro, what's up? How's it going? And it might be that I'm gonna go, hike up the hill back behind our house to the neighbor's house and ask her if she needs any help in the yard, right? Like it kind of depends on how much time I have that day, but either way, whatever I'm kind of inspired to write down that day, I write down. And that's it. So what truth did I discover? What am I grateful for? And then who can I pray for or help or serve today? I call it the Christian Gratitude Journal. So and it works out. It's a good way to start the day. Yeah.
And then what's the next part of your morning routine?
Get up, head downstairs, put on some hot water to make some coffee.
Oh, one thing before we get into that. So you mentioned the HRV stuff. Yeah. If you had in mind that you wanted to do something that day, but your HRV said don't do it, do you just say fuck it and do it? Or no? Do you really adhere to what the HRV is showing?
It depends on whether or not I'm purposefully trying to train through a low heart rate variability score. Because I would say, if someone's just going for longevity or health, just always pay attention to that. If you're an athlete, like every athlete knows this, like you go through periods of time where you're suffering, you're pushing through when your body's not really quote supposed unquote to be doing that. Yeah. But then you taper, you recover, you give your body a rest, and this is just basic periodization principles. You super compensate, and so you get a stair-stepping style effect to greater levels of fitness. So if I'm preparing for a race, there are some days where I have to push through, even though it's interesting to know what my nervous system is doing anyways. Right. But in most cases, I pay attention to it. I mean, I would say 80% of the time, I am not in a case where I'm trying to push through fatigue. And so in those situations, and I've got enough. This, like when you work in the fitness industry, you've got to work out in your back pocket all the time. Yeah. Like it's not hard for me to make a call on the fly and, do the exact workout I had planned on doing anyways with a kettlebell with an elastic band instead, right? The perfect example, where same movement, still greasing the groove, still educating the muscles, still moving, still blood flow, but, lighter and less eccentric, less muscle tissue damage, less central nervous system training. So that's how I kind of operate based on that. And then this ring is interesting. I've been using it more and more because it's called an Oura, OURA, and it actually is beginning to measure HRV now at 5-minute intervals during the night, all night long. So even though it doesn't break down the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic nervous system score like I was describing, it does give a what they call a readiness to train score. Wow. And that's based on freaking body temperature, HRV, previous day's activity, sleep. So it's pulling in even more variables than the nervous system. It generally correlates pretty well to the morning heart rate variability measurement. I've been using it for about 3 years. Wow. But
and you wear it basically 24/7?
Yeah, and when I first began to use it, it didn't have as many features as it does now. It's one of those deals where they can kind of add little things into the app as you go. And I like it because I can put it in airplane mode so that it doesn't emit, like a Jawbone or a Fitbit or an Apple Watch would. It doesn't generate. No, you go into the app that pairs to the watch and you just click airplane mode. Gotcha. And then it turns airplane mode on, and I don't have to just constantly have like something radiating on my body all day long. Yeah. So, I like to go unplugged as much as I can. Yeah. So, the ring gives you some pretty interesting data as well. And I go downstairs after I take this measurement, and I put on the hot water for the coffee. And while the hot water's on, I'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes doing some kind of morning movement. And again, I listen to my body. So it might be, I'm just tight. Like I feel super tight from the day before, and it might just be 10 minutes of foam rolling. You know, if I had like a kettlebell workout the day before, it's just, I'm going to hit my hips for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do more breath work, right? Like I just feel like I'm breathing shallow. I'm kind of stressed out that morning. And so I might do some box breathing or some decompressive breathing or some very, very slow kind of yoga-esque type of stretches. Sometimes, I had a huge dinner the night before. I know I've got a huge day of podcasting or writing or whatever, and I know I'm not going to be very active, so it might be 10 minutes of calisthenics, right? Where I'm doing 10 burpees, stand up, breathe through the nose, 10 burpees, and generally I give myself about 10 to 15 minutes of self-care like that. And then I grab the coffee and I head downstairs to my office with my cup of coffee, and I go in my office, I flip on the lights, and I've got like a whole setup in my office. I've got like infrared panels, and I've got...
do you have regular coffee or just Four Sigmatic?
In the morning, I just have black coffee.
Okay, so
just
you don't
black
do the whole
coffee.
blend, you just did in the morning.
No, and the reason for that is partially influenced by, the work of people like, researchers like Dr. Sachin Panda, who... they do a lot of circadian biology research, and it turns out that even like 200, 300 calories from oil, stuff like that, it actually really breaks the benefits of an intermittent fast and all the cellular autophagy and cellular cleanup and immune system benefits and all the things that you get from fasting. So my first beverage of the day, I don't put anything in it.
So you do how long of a fast each day?
12 to 16 hours. Yeah. So I would like to put things into that morning beverage, but I know that my body feels better when it gets that fast. So I generally don't eat breakfast. Like that smoothie I mentioned, 9:30 to 10 a.m., like around in there. So that cup of coffee I'm sipping while I'm in my office, and I turn on my infrared light panels and kind of let those hit my skin. And I do...
what's the benefit of that for those people who don't know?
Infrared light's very good for collagen. It heats up the body. It's great for the joints. I use like a near infrared and red light combo. There's a company called Juve that makes like these light panels, and I lean them up. I've got one behind me and one in front of me. And I, since you pressed the matter, I actually take all of my clothing off, all of it off. So nice. I sip my coffee naked, but it actually feels very good. It's the equivalent of, especially in the Washington winter, it's like going out and laying on the beach, right? Like it just warms your whole body. They've even done interesting studies on like when you expose your genitalia to this type of light, it actually enhances the activity of the Leydig cells in the testes. So you create more testosterone, and it enhances sperm cell production. So it's very interesting that this whole red light thing. I also, again, especially in the winter, because I live on a north facing slope, I don't get exposed to a lot of sunshine. I put on glasses that generate light, almost like one of these light box devices they would use for seasonal affective disorder. But it's a greenish blue spectrum of light, which is actually far less damaging to the retina than a very bright white light. So it's very similar, like sun gazing, without some of the retinal damage that might occur. And then I do the same thing. I put like a calibrated white light in either of my ears. So the glasses are called Retimer, and the light is called Human Charger. And it literally takes me like 30 seconds. I walk in, I put on the glasses, put in the earbuds, got my coffee sitting there, flip on the infrared light.
How long do you keep those on?
I turn on an essential oil diffuser, and I'll diffuse like a wakefulness. I like peppermint and I like rosemary to kind of like get me going in the morning, wake me up. And I flip on, I've got like a really nice like HEPA air filter, like ion generator. It just kind of makes all the air like smell really good and cleans everything up. And I sit in there sipping my coffee and exposing myself to all these forms of light. I do about 20 to 30 minutes. And during that time, I'm creating. So I keep off email. I'm usually writing. That's actually the time of day when I do most of my fiction writing, or I work on blog posts. So I just find in the morning, if I can create something or start the creation of something that I'll then be tempted to close the loop on later on. Like if I start the blog post, I know towards the end of the day I will want to finish the blog post versus waiting to start it until later on in the day because I was replying to emails earlier in the day. So I don't reply to a lot of emails, but I use that as a time to get work done. And once
talk about the difference between going outside and exposing your eyes to natural light versus the glasses.
Right. Going outside would be better because you'll get UVA, UVB, near infrared, far infrared. That would be more favorable. But from a productivity standpoint, it's hard to go outside with your laptop. And it's from just a pure logistical standpoint, where I live in Washington, like for me to go outside would mean putting on my snowsuit right now. And, it'd be I do it. I go for a walk sometime in the morning. I'll tell you about that in a moment. But I just do the light in the office. Okay. It's convenient. It is not to use this term too much. It's a hack. So once I've had my coffee and everything, as most people know, that hot beverage gets the bowels going. So I'll go upstairs. I'll do my morning poo, and then I come back downstairs. And typically I'm waking between about 6 and 6:30 a.m. So by now it's 7:30, 7:45, and I do some form of a workout, but it's nothing hard. I've found that with hard morning workouts, not only if you do like a very difficult, like a CrossFit WOD type of workout, is there, and I found this with a lot of people, including myself, you just want to go ape nuts at breakfast and like eat everything in sight and you're super hungry all day. There's also a really big spike in cortisol, and it can kind of leave you like kind of edgy for the rest of the morning. So I like to ease into the day. I like to go on a long walk and put on my clothes and go for when I say long walk, this is 20 to 30 minutes. Or I have a sauna and I'll go in the sauna for 20 to 30 minutes. And then I'll finish that up typically with a cold shower, or I have a cold pool at home. I keep it really, really cold.
Oh, wow.
And I'll go jump in the pool and kind of swim underwater back and forth for about 5 minutes. Just kind of.
How cold do you keep it?
I keep it about 45 to 50 degrees. And I do so by just leaving the cover off, in the fall and in the winter, and then in the summer or the spring, I can just kind of dump bags of ice in there when I want to keep it cold. So I do some kind of light morning activity, and honestly, it's usually the walk, it is the sauna. It is occasionally, like, because I'm blogging and podcasting, a lot of people will still send me, yes, DVDs still exist, and I'll get DVDs, of like some kind of a yoga workout or some kind of like a meditation or like a kundalini, where sometimes that's the time that I'll throw in one of those DVDs and just sit there and do some kind of like a passive morning workout. Okay. So there's no hard and fast rule aside from that. I like it to feel more restorative and energizing than intense and exhausting. Yeah. All right. So later on in the day, because I'm still competing professionally in obstacle course racing, I still love to work out hard. Typically, it's at least twice a month from about April through November. Gotcha. So a lot. I'm still racing quite a bit. So later afternoon or early evening is when I'll throw down a hard workout, and there's a variety of reasons for that. Your body temperature peaks later in the day, your grip strength, and your reaction time peak. Your insulin sensitivity is lower later in the day. However, by working out, you restore your insulin sensitivity, which is important because I don't eat any carbohydrates until the end of the day. Okay. Right? And that the reason for that is twofold. First, I reduce the number of times my blood glucose goes up and down during the day, so my energy levels are more stable. Second, I train my body how to burn fats more efficiently as a fuel by not eating a lot of carbohydrates until dinner. Now, the part about that's unfavorable for physiology is if you use that approach but you don't do an afternoon or evening workout and you eat all of your carbohydrates at dinner, you're going to get a pretty big blood glucose spike. You're going to get a pretty big release of insulin, and you're going to likely partition a lot of that carbohydrate as fat or experience a pretty big fluctuation in blood glucose. Whereas if you've just finished a workout, or you've finished a workout within the past 2 to 3 hours for that evening dinner that has the carbohydrates in it, you have upregulated GLUT4 transporter activity, you have upregulated insulin sensitivity, you're just able to partition those carbs into muscle and into liver as glycogen rather than have them spike the blood sugar. Plus you get the tryptophan and the serotonin release from a carbohydrate-rich meal, which enhances sleep. So I've just found that scenario of easy morning workout, no carbs all day long, hard afternoon or early evening workout, as many carbs as I want for dinner, is a really good scenario from a physiological standpoint for being able to kind of have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Now, what about two things? I want to ask what else you eat during the day, and then what about some people who, if they train later in the day, they can't sleep?
So what research shows us regarding the latter part of your question, because they've done quite a bit of research on exercise timing, nutrient timing, and sleep. Easy morning workout enhances sleep later on in the day, probably because for the same reason that the light that I use in the morning is a cue to my circadian rhythm that the day has begun. It's a very good way to regulate my circadian rhythm. The other regulators of circadian rhythm are your first meal of the day, which is why I don't skip breakfast. I simply have it slightly later. And the other circadian cue is movement, right? So exercise. So light, movement, and then some kind of food early in the day is a circadian cue.
Yeah.
And that movement early in the day being a circadian cue is probably why light morning movement has been shown to enhance sleep later on in the day. It's good for circadian biology. The question you were asking was about timing of the exercise. That's right. Timing of the exercise.
Wake up at 3 in the morning, wide awake.
Yeah, exactly. So in addition to that research on morning exercise, they found that evening or afternoon hard exercise, more intense exercise, enhances sleep, but only if that session is finished at least 3 hours prior to bedtime. And I suspect that's because of you not only have increased sympathetic nervous system drive and increased, noradrenaline and epinephrine and all these hormones that are going to surge when you work out, but also your core temperature is higher. Yeah. I would say that in those studies, they likely did not have someone work out closer than 3 hours to bedtime and have them do, for example, a cold shower to reduce core temperature, or finish up the workout with something, like two guys I respect in this industry who do this are Paul Chek and Laird Hamilton. They'll just lay down on their backs and do breathing and meditative work instead of just finishing the workout, throwing down the bar and hunting down your shake or whatever, some kind of settling down of the sympathetic nervous system after the workout. And so I would suspect that if these people who you're talking about are working out closer to bedtime than 3 hours, they could probably incorporate some of these post-workout relaxation or post-workout core body cooling strategies to allow them to get the deep sleep that they need. And those are some of the biggies when it comes to exercise and sleep. A couple other interesting items of note, because I did just interview a guy for my podcast about this. I didn't release that episode yet, but one thing was that when you are in a sleep-deprived state, that is a time when steady-state cardio actually helps to enhance your circadian rhythm. And so if you are sleep deprived, something like that, longer bike ride or a hike or something like that could be useful. Okay. In addition, if you're going into a sleep deprived state, like let's say a weekend in Vegas, high intensity interval training actually helps you to cope with the sleep deprivation. And this would be like a cognitive function, executive function, cognitive performance type of standpoint, which would mean the Friday of a bender, you would do let's say a treadmill sprint workout of 30 on, 30 off times 10, right? Something high intensity interval training based, probably because it does everything from, the lactic acid causes a surge in growth hormone, the hypoxia causes a surge in mitochondrial activation. So a host of things that might actually help you to combat the effects of sleep deprivation. Okay. So, anyways though, back to the morning routine, I finish up that easy morning workout, easy morning movement. And then after that, I launch into what I had described to you with the smoothie, where I hop on my team call, make my smoothie, and then it's kind of off to work. Yeah. So, yeah.
What else do you eat the rest of the day?
So I'll nurse some of these teas, like the ones that we're drinking now, typically in the afternoon, when you want a little bit of a pick me up. Yeah, exactly. Between breakfast and lunch, I really don't eat a lot of calories because my breakfast smoothie is big. It's big enough. It keeps me going. I drink some sparkling water. I keep some of these Zevia sodas around. I like those a lot. Like a cream soda or ginger, like a ginger root beer. It's really flavorful. They don't use a lot of maltodextrin in their stevia. They use a really low metal, low BPA can. I kind of like their approach. And plus it just tastes like soda, which is great. You can't beat that. And then I for lunch, I'll typically break for lunch around 1:30 or 2. So I try and give myself like close to 4 hours of just like deep work. I find like 4 hours is a good chunk of time and I'm really productive in the mornings. Kind of like 10 to 2 is kind of like my big time of day to just like hunker down. And that's everything from like working on my books, working on blog posts, doing podcast interviews with people, interviewing people for my podcasts, so I'm working on a lot of different supplement formulations and fitness gear and, like brainstorming, creative design, all that kind of stuff. It's typically between about 10 and 2. And then I'm just toasted by 2 because I work hard. Like there's no push notifications on my phone. I'm not, dicking around on Facebook. Like it's just like hard work, like horse with blinders on, just go. And then I break for lunch, and lunch almost every day, for me, I don't like the whole decision-making fatigue. They've shown that high amount of diet variability is actually something that can cause, like weight gain, leptin insensitivity, big fluctuations in appetite, regular hormones. I mean, look at me, I'm not fat. I'm not worried about that, but I'm racing. Right. For me, I still have to still keep myself light to run up hills. And I'm doing, starting this year, I'm getting back into the world of triathlon racing. So cycling, power to weight ratios. So I am always kind of cognizant of weight management, and not because I'm obese, but because I'm an athlete.
What do you normally weigh?
So, my normal, stable, healthy, hormone friendly weight is about 185 to 190. And I keep myself at about 175 during races. Right now I'm like 175, 180-ish. So yeah. So for lunch around 2, I have a big pile of vegetables, like just wide assortment. Could be carrots, could be like a nice spring mix, some arugula, cilantro, parsley, some wild herbs, just kind of like a good, nice bed of vegetables. Yep. And then I'll add fats to that, like a handful of like sprouted pumpkin seeds or walnuts, typically some kind of a fish. I like to do fish at lunch, so a can of sardines is typically one of my go-tos. Anchovies, mackerel, if there's some leftovers from dinner the night before, like some steak or something we had the night before, sometimes I'll put some of that on there. And some kind of like a digestif, so a squeeze of lemon, some fennel seed, something that kind of helps to digest the meal. Okay. That enhances what is called your first phase insulin response, which is the body's natural insulin response to a meal. Your insulin is supposed to go up to ensure that the glucose goes down, soon after the meal, by chewing your food slowly. And by using digestifs or bitters, apple cider vinegar, lemon, fennel, licorice, any of these things that help to digest food, even digestive enzymes would count.
Do you use apple cider vinegar a lot?
I do. Yeah, I do. I do typically a shot of apple cider vinegar I'll add to like an evening cocktail, right? So I'll do like, my wife makes fun of because I'll come up for dinner and I'll get myself a big glass of ice. She's just like, she drinks like just, like a glass of nice organic wine, right? And I'll just bastardize the wine. I'll take my glass of nice organic wine, I'll pour it over ice, I'll add a shot of apple cider vinegar, a squeeze of half a lemon, a pinch of sea salt, and so I make like these crazy cocktails, and I'll like take her amazing kombucha and just like put a shot of vodka in there, and some lemon or some apple cider vinegar again. So it's kind of like a bitter, like a digestif. You go to a cocktail bar, they have all those different bottles of bitters. There is actually a beneficial effect to putting some of that stuff into your body prior to a meal. Same thing with lunch, right? Like I'll include some kind of a digestif. Usually for me, 9 times out of 10, it's like a big handful of fennel seeds. Fennel's a perfect example. And sometimes I'll toast them. I'll put a little olive oil in like a cast iron skillet and just toast the fennel seeds and scrape those on top of the salad. And then what I do, because eating a salad can be kind of boring, is I get out either nori wraps or coconut wraps. They make wraps out of coconut meat, and they make wraps out of seaweed. So like something I can use as a burrito that doesn't have all the, all the wheat and everything. Something like that. Or like there's a couple companies like I think Emerald Cove that do like a good metal-free kind of nori, seaweed wrap that you'd make sushi out of. But I just get the whole sheet, usually 2 of them. And I whip myself up some of these miracle noodles or miracle rice, which is just like pasta, but it's made out of Japanese yam. It's really good. It's got a lot of insoluble fiber. it's more filling for me than just the vegetables.
Yeah.
So I make that. I'll just saute that in olive oil. Sometimes I'll just dump that on top of the fennel seeds that I have sauteing anyways. Throw some salt, some pepper, some cayenne, rosemary, just whatever happens to be around. And then I dump that on top of the salad. So I basically have my salad, kind of this pasta-ish thing on top of the salad, some fish, some nuts thrown in there. And then I'll just take that and wrap it up in a burrito, like a coconut flour or a nori wrap, and I eat it like a burrito. And it's amazing.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it tastes really good. It's like I wish I could sell that as like one of those done for you meals, but it's complex. It's like the smoothie. It'd be tough to turn that into an actual product. So anyways, I'll have lunch and then take a nap. I take a nap almost every day. 20 to 45 minutes. Take a nap. Yeah. I have one of these like infrared mats. It's like they call it a biomat, and I flip that on up in my bed like before lunch. It was kind of warm when I finished lunch. Yeah. And I go up there and I curl up on that mat, and it's like, it just warms the whole body. It's like snuggling up to a warm little teddy bear. Wow. And go up there and I nap. Put on some a sleep mask and just fall asleep. That's like gives me 2 days, right? Because I wake up and I'm chock full of energy again. Yeah. And then I go down, and the afternoon is when I'll do more of like my respond to emails. Oh, hey, Ben, can you take care of that? Hey, Ben, I want to hop on the phone call with you. Like, I found that the afternoon is when, I'm kind of creatively deprived anyway by that point in the day. So that's when I do a lot more of my responsive work all the way up to when my kids get home from school around like 4 p.m. And then usually I'll hang out with my kids for a while. Like we'll go outside and we'll shoot the bows, or we'll go for a walk, or we'll paint, or we'll read, or just do something with the kids. Yeah. How old are the kids? They're 9. They're 9-year-old twin boys. Okay. Yeah, they're great. They're really into cooking right now. Nice. They just filled out and turned in their applications for Master Chef Junior. And really? They have a cooking podcast, and they make like one of them does this. Well, two of the things I'm most impressed with is one of them makes an amazing risotto, right, with like cremini mushrooms and bone broth and white wine and like a nice rice, and he'll put like onions and garlic, like just a really good, but like a really well done risotto. Not like hey, I just found a little bit of crunchy, right? Like risotto is about timing and attention, which is why that impresses me. The other one does an amazing souffle, which is that's very difficult to nail. Crazy. So they do all these crazy recipes, and they have a podcast now where they release their recipes and they record the whole thing. And anyways, though, for about an hour or so, it's kind of family time, taking a break from work. Yeah. And generally the kids have something in the evenings. It's just kids these days. They got jiu-jitsu, or they got tennis, or they got Awanas, or they have something they're running off to do. So the kids take off to do what they're going to do, and then I throw down my workout. Right, like between about 5 and 6:30 p.m. or so, I'm doing some kind of it's usually by the time I've worked out and finished the workout, and usually it's depends on the time of year. Right now it's a lot of like isometric training, a lot of heavier training, a lot of kind of like strength and foundation work for the race season. Okay. Not a lot of like high intensity interval training and like really sport specific training, because it's we're kind of at the cusp of race season, but not quite. So
give me an example of
an example of an off season workout would be I will warm up on a machine in my office called a Live O2 trainer, which you flip on, and you got to leave it on for about an hour before you're going to do your workout. But it takes all of the air in the room and sucks the air into like this big bag, and then it hyper concentrates the oxygen, almost like a hyperbaric oxygen therapy chamber. And there's a little switch that you hold when you're riding your bicycle for it. So I have a bicycle set up next to it. You can put like an Aerodyne next to it, for example. When you flip the switch, you can flip back and forth from hypoxia, where it just sucks all the oxygen out of the air that you're breathing, to hyperoxia, where it delivers you 100% oxygen. All right, so I'll get on that. I'll warm up for about 5 minutes with pure oxygen. Then I'll flip it to hypoxia, and I'll do like 15 seconds as hard as I can go hypoxic. Then flip it to pure oxygen, do 15 seconds as hard as I can go pure oxygen, recover on pure oxygen, and do that like 10 times through, like a 10 by 30 second high intensity interval training. Sure. But that's the equivalent of spending like a whole day in a hyperbaric oxygen therapy chamber. The reason that's important is because it jacks your mitochondrial density through the roof. So amazing for the mitochondria. And you could if you didn't have one of those machines, you could do that with, let's say, like a training mask. You could put on a training mask, and you go as hard as you can with the training mask on for 15 to 30 seconds. Then you just like pull it down, like let it hang around your neck, and go 15 to 30 seconds, continue as hard as you can go with the mask off, right? And it's not hyperoxic air that you're breathing, but it's the same thing as contrast training, contrast high intensity interval training, right? So you're giving yourself low O2 to high O2. So I'll go back and forth, and that's about a 15 to 20 minute long workout. And then, this would be like an example of a key workout. And then I'll go into my gym and do, for example, single set to failure training. So I have this force plate. It's called a Peak Fit Pro, and it calculates exactly how many pounds of pressure I'm producing and transmits that to my phone. And the phone will beep when I've dropped off to 60% of what I was originally producing. All right, so I can say do a deadlift. I'm holding the bar, go as hard as I can go. It's isometric. The bar's not moving, but it's attached to the force plate. So I'm deadlifting as hard as I can for 30, 45, 60 seconds. About, let's say 67 seconds, I peak out. I'm done. Like it's like pulling, like, ripping a burning car off of a baby. Like it's hard. Like just takes an intense amount of concentration. The phone beeps because I drop off to 60% capacity. Boom, set's over. I recover. I'll go do like, cat-cow, crawling, opposite arm, opposite leg extension, some, Stu McGill, like, low back work, planks, whatever. Give myself 2 to 3 minutes for my creatine stores to regenerate and for some of the lactic acid to subside. Then I'll go do the same thing with squat, bench, shoulder press, lat pull down. Okay. Right, so that takes me about a half hour or so. And then I'll finish that up with about 20 minutes in the sauna where I'm already hot. I'm going in. So now I'm blood building more erythropoietin. They've shown that when you go into a sauna and you're already hot after a workout, and I jack the sauna all the way up, so the heat's all the way up. You're building blood. You're getting a lot of production of heat shock proteins, which are great for cellular resilience. So an ideal
scenario for someone listening is that, would you recommend that's the best time to do it?
If there's one time of the day that you can do the sauna, do it after a workout. Okay. I mean, when you're already hot, and that's when research has shown that's actually going to have like this blood building effect. Okay. So,
minimum how long?
20 minutes. Yeah. I like a good 20. 30 minutes. Yeah. I don't want to be that guy you find dead of a heart attack in a sauna. Yeah. And honestly, that's crossed my mind before because I get really hot in there. Yeah. And like if I get to the point where I'm dizzy and stuff starts to spin, because it gets to that point, I'm like, because if I'll look at the sauna clock and it'll be at like 25 minutes left. I'll be like, so if I did pass out right now, I'm gonna sit in here and cook for 25 minutes. I don't want to like get kidney failure or something like that. Right. So generally 20 to 30 minutes, but pretty uncomfortable still, like pretty hot. And I'll move. I'll be doing like yoga stretches. A big one I like to do now is Eldoa, ELDOA. It's like a form of self-traction. It's kind of weird. You could Google it and look it up, but ELDOA is what it's called. I interviewed one of the practitioners on my website. I had him out to my house where he taught me for 3 days and taught me how to do it. Then I interviewed him about which are the best moves, and so I take those moves and it's a great way to finish up a workout. You kind of traction the joints. A great way to reintroduce synovial fluid, relubricate the joints, kind of decompress everything, and then I'll finish with like a quick cold shower. Not like a full-on cold soak, which would actually blunt the hormetic response to training. I'm not a big fan of that, doing that after workout. But like a quick cold shower for the reasons I mentioned earlier. Decrease the core temperature so I could sleep better later on. That's an example.
Like 5 minutes?
Yeah, and like during the race season, I would strap on my shoes, head out the front door, and I have a 10-acre obstacle course built up in the tree. So that would be like more rope climbing, sandbag hauling, wall climbing, log hopping, rock carrying, hill sprints, like really a more sport specific workout. That would be, so the first example I gave you would be something I'd do like in the winter, in the off season, indoors. The other one would be like more of a spring, summer type of workout. So yeah, it kind of varies. And then when I travel, it's all over the place. I travel with this little hollowed out foam roller that I keep a massage ball, some blood flow restriction bands, a jump rope, and a good hefty resistance band in. And I can throw down a workout with. I can do like a 10 rounds of 60 seconds jump rope, 10 upright resistant band rows, 10 resistant band push-ups, 20 squats with the blood flow restriction bands on, and do rounds of that. Like, so I can do anything when I'm traveling. Anyways, so I finish up that workout. I don't eat for 1.5 to 2 hours. Sometimes I take some amino acids. That's it, like essential amino acids after that workout, just to give myself a little bit of protein or some collagen.
Explain why you wait to eat.
Surge in growth hormone, surge in testosterone. So if you are trying to put on weight, if you're trying to put on mass, that's not a good strategy. the pros of the surge in growth hormone and testosterone are outweighed by the cons of the calorie deprivation post-workout, and the fact that you really do want to hit your body in the most anabolically primed state for post-workout protein synthesis. If you're trying, let's say you're a high school football player, you're trying to put on 20 pounds, like don't not eat after workout. Right. But if you're in it, like I am for longevity, for performance, for some of the growth hormone and testosterone and favorable hormonal response, you wait for a little while. So I'll typically wait until about 8 or 8:30 to have dinner, and then we sit down, we have dinner, and like I mentioned, dinner's the carbohydrate intensive, kind of like whatever. Dinner's the meal where I'm more of a foodie, right? It's just like, you know, like last night I was out here in Venice and went to an Italian restaurant, had like some nice, some beet pasta and a veal chop and some wine, and had like a chocolate souffle for dessert. Barrique, Barrique, Barrique. Yeah, I think it's called. Good place. Yeah, good place. I've never been there. Home make all their pasta. Yep. And, it's really good. So yeah, dinner is a little bit more kind of free will, just whatever. We sit down with the family, we have a big family dinner. We play. Do you try to get a certain amount of carbs in? Like based on your training or anything? I've calculated. I don't try for this, but I've calculated, and it comes out to about 100 to 200 grams of carbs. So, yeah, I mean, the equivalent of, let's say, like a big serving of sweet potato fries, glass of red wine, maybe, like a bar of like organic dark chocolate for dessert, that kind of thing, Yeah. So, and then, it doesn't sound like your protein's super high either. Protein's not bad. I don't see much of a benefit of exceeding about 0.8 grams per pound per day. I also think most athletes and most folks in general should at least get about 0.6 or so. So 0.6 to 0.8 grams per pound between like the morning protein in that shake and the lunchtime sardines and those amino acids that I'll have after the workout. And then there's some days where I'll crush like half a cow for dinner. Or my wife will make bone broth and I'll literally eat the entire chicken carcass. I'll go ape nuts sometimes. And that would be like, a couple times a week, and most, where you're trying to simulate ancestral man coming across a kill in the forest, but most of the time it's moderated. It's a little bit of protein restriction to kind of get that sweet spot between longevity and anabolism. Right. So, we sit around during dinner and we'll play, we have like the table topics card that you pull out, like what was your most, memorable vacation experience, when you were a kid, and we go around, we talk about it. And we have a long family dinner. My kids and my wife all use their gratitude journals too. So we'll talk about what we gratitude journaled about. And then after dinner, it's, I'll typically play some music, play some guitar, some ukulele. Music is great for neuroplasticity. Music or learning a language. I encourage everyone to do one of those. Yeah. I find music to be better because when I learn a language, I live in freaking Spokane, Washington, which is not that culturally diverse. I can't go practice my Mandarin Chinese or, my Thai unless I get down to LA or something. So I'm a big fan of music. I'll be working on a new song. Oh yeah, a few years. Yeah. Working on a new song or, I like to pick something in the evening that just makes your head spin, right? That makes smoke come out your ears, So it might be that. Zero work at night. Well, zero work with the exception that typically, like, as the kids go up to like my kids do they brush their teeth, they do some coconut oil pulling, they do some things like that as we're kind of like spreading out for the evening and everybody's going their separate ways to get ready for dinner. I open my phone and I make sure there's no fires to put out, right? Because I can't fall asleep later on. I'm like, I haven't looked at anything since like 6 p.m. I wonder what's going on. I wonder if I got to respond to this or respond to that. So I would say about 20 to 30 minutes at some point, and it varies, but usually it's sometime between 8 and 9. I'm just checking in to make sure there's no little fires to put out, and then the rest of the evening depends. Sometimes my wife and I'll hang out for a while. Sometimes I'll go back down to the sauna and pull out a good book and vape for a little while, and then go upstairs and snuggle up and read some more. I try to read a book a day, so I do a lot of reading in the evening. Okay, so that's insane. But I got to figure out how you're doing that. But just real quick, anything you're doing specifically to kind of hack or enhance sleep quality? Yeah, of course, the cooling the body's core temperature post-workout is a biggie. Consumption of carbohydrates with your evening meal, that's another biggie. The two sleep supplements that I'll typically use, first of all, before that lunchtime nap, I like to sip on some reishi tea because I found that reishi relaxes you without causing you to feel drowsy afterwards, like CBD or melatonin or something like that would. In the evening, I like a very CBD rich capsule or vape pen or anything that's very, very high in CBD. There's been some interesting studies on that, and especially percentage of deep sleep. So it's good for deep sleep quality. There's another supplement I take right now called Sleep Remedy, and it's just like a little cocktail of sleep ingredients, like a microdose of melatonin, a little bit of magnesium, a little bit of vitamin D, some omegas, a little bit of 5-HTP, which is kind of relaxing. Yeah. And that one's called...
Is it the Doc Parsley one?
Yeah, Doc Parsley Sleep Remedy. Yeah. I take that with a little bit of CBD. All of the rooms in my house that are sleeping or relaxation oriented are lit by light bulbs that don't emit a lot of blue light. There's some made by a company called Lighting Science that are called Sleepy Time or Good Night bulbs. So I have those in most of the bedrooms. So I'm trying to restrict my exposure to a lot of blue light at night. You know, if I have light mode off on my phone, you can see here if I press my home button 3 times, it switches to red because I went into my iPhone settings. So I can kind of like make sure that the screen is more red. That's an easy hack. Just look up how to activate red light on your phone. And I diffuse a little bit of lavender or essential oil next to the bedside because some aroma helps you to sleep a little bit. I use this thing called a chili pad, which circulates cold water underneath your body while you're asleep. So I circulate that at about 55 degrees or so.
Difference for you?
It really helps. It really does. Okay. Yeah, I'm spoiled though because when I travel, I get warmer when I sleep. I'll wake up at night sometimes. If I do wake up at night, anything that causes a release of gamma aminobutyric acid or GABA. So that would be like passion flower, valerian, chamomile. Hitting like a vape pen would work as well. Like anything that kind of lets you fall back asleep. I'll keep something like that next to the bed. And then the other thing that I'm trying to do right now is teach myself how to sleep on my back, based off of some discussions I've had with chiropractic physicians about the alignment of the spine while back sleeping versus side sleeping. So I'm kind of experimenting with that to see if it helps out with some psoas issues I've been having. And so I found
what's weird is when I take a nap, I always sleep on my back, but at night I can't fall asleep. I'm identical.
It's crazy. And what I'll do is I'll fall asleep on my back, then I'll wake up. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I found that just by doing it, I'm going longer and longer now, sleeping on my back. Okay. I've got a little back sleeping pillow now where it's got like a little place to support your neck, and your head kind of hangs off the back of the pillow. Okay. And then I put on this is the big one. This is the big one for me. I bought it off of Amazon. Some chiropractic doc recommended it to me. I don't remember what, but you just look up back sleeping pillow, or the other thing you can do is get a down pillow that's a 650 down pillow. Okay. 650 down pillow kind of contours to the head pretty nicely. Then I put on some headphones, because what I found is if I put on like a good pair of like Bose noise blocking headphones, the phones are so damn big, it almost like is disruptive for me to roll over on my side. So I can just kind of lay there on my back, and I use this thing called Brain FM, right? And I'll put that on sleep mode, and I play those beats that kind of lull me to sleep. So yeah, that's kind of how I manage the sleep. So yeah, and that's that took me like an hour. That's my day. Yeah, that's my day. It's a day in life.
So what would you say, just to give some rapid fire takeaways, what would you say is, like, I don't know, your favorite morning hack? Like, if you only do one thing to optimize yourself for the day, I know it's hard to pick one, but like someone listening, will be 1 or 2 things to add immediately if they're not doing it.
Favorite morning hack would actually be getting at some point during the morning for the nitric oxide release, for the activation of your vagus nerve, which is very good for your nervous system balance, for the improvement in metabolic rate, for the conversion of some of your white adipose tissue to metabolically active brown fat. It would be about a 5-minute cold shower. Okay. Yeah, or a cold soak. You jump and get cold in the morning at some point.
How soon after you wake up?
Oh, and I would say any time in the morning. For me, the morning qualifies as like before 10. Okay. Yeah. Kind of depends on when you wake up and when you start your day.
Yeah. What about if you had to pick your top favorite recovery method? And is there other stuff you do? Like, do you do acupuncture? Do you do float tanks? Do you do cryo?
Not a lot of that. Mostly because I don't get out much when I'm at home. Yeah. I don't have a cryotherapy but I got a cold pool and no, I don't do a lot of acupuncture. the recovery method that I would say is going to be good. Sauna is good, but I already mentioned that. Sauna is good for collagen and for blood flow. Probably gradated pulsating compression. There's a company called Normatec, Normatec, and they make both arm and leg sleeves that start at the distal section, such as the wrists in the case of the arm or the ankle in the case of the feet, and gradate the compression up the body back to the heart, and it kind of milks lactic acid and inflammatory byproducts out of an area. And sometimes, like I mentioned, I'll take a nap, and I'll even like put those on when I take a nap in the afternoon. So that would probably be my favorite one, like gradated compression therapy.
Okay. Yeah. And is that style of eating that you mentioned, intermittent fasting combined with carbs at night, is that your favorite kind of way of eating? I mean, you've probably experimented with everything.
It works pretty damn well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So for the majority of people,
I've tried like strict ketosis. I've tried raw vegan. I've tried everything, and that works out pretty well. Intermittent fasting, as much carbs you want at night, easy morning workout, hard afternoon workout. It works.
Yeah. What about any kind of brain hacks, like cognitive function?
Yeah. Besides music and learning language, I would say two things. Number one, I am a fan of microdosing, particularly with either LSD or psilocybin. If you have difficulty getting your hands on those, and that would be something you'd use once every 3 to 4 days. Okay. The supplement I've found to be closest to that would be one called Qualia. There's a company in San Diego that makes this supplement called Qualia. That's like 42 different neural anti-inflammatories and neural minerals and a bunch of stuff that I find to be really efficacious as a brain supplement. So if I could choose one thing, it would be that.
Okay. Yeah. You said you read a book a day. Mm-hmm. I know people who read 3 to 4 books a week, and I thought that was impressive. How you reading 7?
Primarily have a book in each location of the house where you might stop to read, such as the toilet, beside the bed, in the office, in the living room, in your bag. I always have a book around to read. B, scan the table of contents and scan the end of the book, both inside flaps, thumb through the book to see how it's laid out. Then dive in with the simple rule that you are not allowed to turn a page back. It makes you very cognizant of what you are reading, and it causes you to not read mindlessly and say, and we all do this sometimes, what did I just read? I just spent 5 minutes. I don't remember what I just read. Right. So I go through it that way. I have a pen. I quickly highlight, underline, fold over pages, and then it's deep work, right? It's just going all the way through. Occasionally something is super profound. I'll pull out my phone and Snapchat it. That's about the only time I'll stop. Okay. And really that's it's like a muscle, right? Yeah. Like if you begin to do it, and if you always have the books around, if you like my wife and I will have hot, crazy, wild sex on a Thursday night, and we finish at 10:30 p.m. and I'll roll over and grab a book and start to read. Yeah. And then I just, like if I haven't finished my book that day, that's what I'd. So come rain or shine, I make it happen.
Is there anything else you do maybe after you read to enhance kind of the retain?
Yes, on my website, I keep track of like quotes, photographs, underlined sections, and by teaching the important things that I've learned to others, it solidifies that for me.
Totally.
Yeah.
What are some favorite books you've read recently?
Endure by Alex Hutchinson is a very good book on human physiology, specifically regarding like pain tolerance. Okay. That's a good one. The Things You Only See When You Slow Down is a very good kind of like little Buddhist, excellent read. And kind of along similar lines, there's one called The Tao of Leadership that I liked quite a bit. And then finally, I would say Principles by Ray Dalio. For anybody who owns or runs a business, that would be key. That and The Tao of Leadership. For anybody in general, The Things You Only See When You Slow Down. And then for athletes, Endure.
Okay. You mentioned business there and Principles, Dalio. Any favorite business books come to mind?
Well, Principles by Ray Dalio is quite good, but I would say Charlie Munger's Poor Charlie's Almanac would be my number one choice. It's a very good book. It's hard to get. You're going to probably pay $50 to $70 on Amazon to hunt it down, but it's a very, very good read. Poor Charlie's Almanac by Charlie Munger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Let me see. Before we let you go here, I did not ask you about Spartan race training. If someone wants to get into Spartan race training, talk about most people injure themselves because they just go balls to the wall and do too much too soon? Like, what would you? I mean, it's hard to answer in 2 minutes, but what's kind of a general guideline if someone's normally going to the gym, CrossFit, whatever? They're gonna, okay, I want to do what Ben does. How do I ease my way into Spartan?
I tell obstacle racing athletes, if you could do 3 things, and then I have to wrap up because I promised my wife I'd call her at close to 3:15. Okay.
Sorry.
And I don't want to wind up in the doghouse.
Right.
It's got to fly home tonight. I can't face the nod. She's not a bad person. I tell them, running efficiency and economy. If you don't know how to run efficiently, there's more running in obstacle course racing than people realize.
Yeah.
Know how to run with efficiency and economy, whether it's chi running or pose running. The book Ready to Run is really good by TJ Murphy. Number 2, grip strength. Know how to hang from things for copious amounts of time. Do fat bar, skinny bar, plate carries, pinch grip, captain's a crush, work your freaking grip. Okay. Running efficiency, hand grip, and then the ability to move rapidly between upper body and lower body work. Meaning hang, pull up, push up, crawl, carry, then run. And then hang, pull, push up, crawl, carry, and run. And get used to shuttling that lactic acid rapidly from one body part to another, and then return rapidly to economical and efficient running. So run efficiency, grip strength, and lactic acid tolerance are the 3 biggest parameters to train if you want to be a good obstacle course athlete.
Awesome. Such great advice, Ben. Thank you so much. Tell everyone where they can listen to your podcast, where they can find more stuff, your website, all that.
Easy peasy. You go to bengreenfieldfitness.com is where you can find everything. My company, where I develop supplements, formulas, fitness gear, all that jazz, is Kion, which is over at getkion.com, Kion.
Cool.
There you go.
And real quick, you mentioned you write fiction.
I do.
They can find that on the site too? Or no?
Yeah, if you Google Ben Greenfield Fiction, you should find it. But my first book is called The Forest. Okay. The Forest, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
Cool, dude. Thanks for having me on.
Guys, thanks for listening as always, and we'll talk to you next time.